Hi, my name is Esme,
And this is Lemar.
and this is Vent
Vent
Away.
away.
All right, so how have you been?
I've been doing good, mostly the same, but almost nothing changed.
Honestly, same. Like the only thing I really have going on for me right now is just school.
Yeah, me too. School is probably the only thing I'm focusing on.
Yeah, online school is not. It's not the best. It's so boring, honestly. It seems like it. For me, I'm a psych major, so it's probably better for me to do my classes in person, just because I feel like you get more of that full experience of class and like learning the things in person. But after COVID, all of that just kind of it got so messed up.
How has your life been after or during the pandemic?
It was the I think the best way to describe it is just it was difficult,
Mm-hmm.
only because it was a lot of like getting accustomed to this new lifestyle of you have to take care of yourself everywhere you go, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the whole COVID thing was insane.
How many
It's
times have
just
you
online
gotten
classes and all that.
COVID?
Three. I've gotten COVID three times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, three times. I got COVID the first time in the first year that the pandemic
Yeah,
was
you told me
happening.
about that.
It was an awful experience. Awful, awful, awful experience. The second time I got COVID was in February of 2022.
Mm.
That was the second time. By that point, I was already vaccinated. So it didn't hit all that hard. And then this third time was I think it was in January
Mm-hmm.
of this year. It was either January or February. I got COVID for the third time with my sister. So the good thing was this time around, it was just me and my sister. So we were literally in my, like, isolating in my room, playing on the Switch all day and just like watching TV because we had nothing else to do. We couldn't go to school. We couldn't do any of our like usual things.
Yeah, for me it's just I've turned into a literal germaphobe. Seriously.
Yeah, a lot of people. I've seen that a lot of people have.
No, but
They're just so scared
I'm
now.
on another level. I don't know if I told you. I wash my hands every single time I touch something that isn't sanitized.
That's not even like the worst, honestly. I feel like that's just you being safe. It sucks. It just sucks being in this environment like that.
I'm just sugarcoating, you know that, right?
I'm sure of it. Yeah.
I've washed my hands. Seriously, I'm literally in my own space. I don't touch anything that others touch, even like other people's phones, even the ones in the house. I hate that I turned out this way, you know?
Mhm.
Every time I come home, I would just have to anything that I took outside with me sanitized. Like every single device that I have in my house has been through a bunch of rubbing alcohol because of
Mhm.
this. And
You're not the only person, and there's a lot of people who just like psychologically speaking, COVID just had such a big like effect for a lot of people. Like for a lot of people now they're just so afraid to go out,
mhm,
and live their lives the way they used to because of COVID. Because I feel like a lot of people were awakened to how bad things can get if they don't take care of themselves.
mhm. And my grandmother has type 2 diabetes and my
Mhm.
grandfather has, high blood pressure. So I'm trying to really not get sick for their own sake. They already have these diseases as it is, and and they're old, so they have low immunity. So and we're trying
Mhm.
to really protect ourselves as much as possible. This year, it's like nothing ever happened. No one ever wears masks anymore, which I understand
No.
because it's getting better.
Yeah, it's kind of just like coming to this point where people there's like you have the group of people who are be still being like really overly cautious, and you have that group of people who just don't really care anymore. Cuz like for example, like I go to school in person, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people there, you if anything, it's more rare now to see a person with a mask than it was when I started, my
Yeah.
freshman year. Like when I started my freshman year, we were still mostly online. But I had a class in person, an English class, and everyone was wearing a mask. It was rare to see someone without a mask. And now it's the complete opposite, you know?
It's rare to see
And
someone with a mask.
like, yes, and it's kind of conflicting because you want to be like, oh, I'm okay because I'm vaccinated. I'm not going to get COVID again, et cetera, et cetera. But you still kind of have that fear in the back of your
Yeah.
head of like, what if I get it? Especially like, in cases like ours, like me too, I have people at home who are immunocompromised
Mhm.
where you don't want to get them sick because you know that if you get sick, they get sick because you live with them.
Mhm.
So like the stuff you touch, they touch too.
Yeah.
And for like it gets crazy. For example, like this last week we had at school, multiple people came out positive with COVID
Ooh.
in from a lecture. So they advised us all to get tested and whatnot because they were like, "There's a good chance you guys were all exposed," and that happens a lot more often than you would want it to. Like, it's kind of scary to get those emails and be like, damn, like I was in that class. What if I was next to that person?
Yeah, imagine how much scary it would have been like a few years ago.
Yeah, that would have been terrifying.
At least now we have vaccinations, we have booster shots, and we're at least
Hmm.
protected. But like hearing this kind of news in 2020 and 2021, it's scary to think about, or it's scary to get these kind of news.
Yeah, it's just it makes you kind of like question if there's more you can do to take care of yourself. But, besides wearing the mask and like, sanitizing yourself or just kind of staying away from touching other stuff, there's not, it feels like there's not a lot you can
Mm-hmm.
do. And it just kind of sucks.
Do you remember the toilet paper debacle?
God, yes, I do. I remember that. It was like the very beginnings of COVID, and everyone was talking about how there was gonna be like a closure
I
of
uh-huh.
everything.
I remember
Everything was just gonna close
I
down.
remember lining up at Costco at what, like 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning before it opens. It
Mm-hmm.
opened and there was already such a huge line of people that it extended all the way to the back of Costco.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember being with my parents one time in line in this big line, like the Costco here where we live.
Mhm.
It was like wrapping around the store almost twice.
Yeah, and
I was like, I do not want to sit here in this line.
then by the time you reach the front of the line, they would be like, "Oh, we're sorry. We're out of this. We're out of."
Exactly, but you had to be there from like the, the moment the sun is coming
Mhm.
up and wait like 4 hours to be let in just for there to be nothing left.
There was what, toilet paper shortage. There was, I even heard an
The
egg.
water shortages,
The water, the
the
bulk water.
eggs, the milk,
hmm
everyone was like starting to collect canned food.
The hoarding.
Literally felt like the apocalypse was coming.
I know. I've seen so many videos on TikTok back then about people hoarding. They would put every single thing they bought in the garage, and they would sell it at super high hiked up prices.
I remember that. I remember everyone was so scared because they were like, we're going to close everything down to prevent the spread and blah, blah, blah. And then they didn't do anything. That's what, like,
Yeah.
afterwards, it made it feel like, then what did we do all this for? Because nothing closed. It was like you could go to a grocery store and get what you needed and you didn't need to hoard stuff in your house.
Yeah. And even with Amazon, when the pandemic started, I remember ordering around April, right? Uh
Mm-hmm.
and I would just see the shipping dates: May, June, August. It's basically playing the
Yeah,
wheel of when will your package arrive, because you don't know.
exactly. Yeah.
Even Amazon doesn't know. That's why they gave themselves that much of a leeway to give your package out, because
Right.
at this time there was such big unpredictability about COVID. No one knew what to expect. No one experienced this before, in the modern ages at least. We didn't know how to handle it.
I know, no one did. And then, like, I don't want to get too political about it, but then there was like the whole Trump being president during the time.
Yeah.
And then and then it started getting really like nasty out there because then we started like seeing the Black Lives Matter movement because of,
Mhm.
things that were happening. And then we also have like this big like event just kind of happen of Asian stereotypes
Yeah.
starting to come in, and a lot of like the Asian hate.
Mhm.
And one of the big things, was when Trump commented, what did he say? He called it the Wuhan virus or the Chinese
Mhm.
virus, and he was like kind of telling people that it was their fault for this happening.
Yeah. And from a standpoint, from one standpoint, I can, agree from his side that, yeah, it did originate in Wuhan, China, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough of an excuse to kind of generalize that into the public. You're a public figure and you have such power to change what people think. You have
Right.
you have that power to literally make people believe whatever you say. And I think this just really started a whole era of negativity, hate, and just racism towards, Asians in general.
Right. Like during this period, I remember like it would come out on the news all the time where they were like, "Oh, this person did this person to this person, etc." And it was just like constantly news about Asian hate, and
Mm-hmm.
and about just hate overall. Like overall, we could say that during this period there was a lot of hate.
Mm-hmm.
And in the news, what they were showing mainly was the African American community and the Asian American communities.
Yeah.
They were just receiving so much hate during this period because of comments like that, like the Wuhan virus, like I remember there was a time they were saying that Trump had even gone to meet this officer from the George Floyd case.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that he was, he was telling him that he was a great police officer. I remember hearing rumors like that. I
Uh-huh.
don't know if they're true, but it's stuff like that, that you kind of think about it, like what's going on, like what, and you almost want to be like, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
But during a time like COVID, it was really hard to do anything to help.
I just kept seeing news about Asian Asian hate basically, and African American hate, because at the time, Black Lives Matter was happening at the same time as well. Um, and I've just seen news reports of people, just being racist to Asians out of nowhere. They would just spit on. I saw a lot of news about people spitting on Asians.
I saw that a lot on like social media,
Mhm.
where on social media a lot of people were talking about just the things as, as that community, what they were experiencing from it, like I did see a lot of the spitting. I saw a lot of people being insulted. A lot of people, it would get to the point of like being attacked
Yeah.
in their own like shops and, in places. And then to the point where I remember at some point they were saying something about like there was even doctors who didn't, want to treat Asian patients, and then vice versa, patients who didn't want Asian doctors,
Mm.
you know? And to me, that was kind of funny, not in the sense of like it's comical, but funny in the sense of like they're used to, some people have that stereotype of, and the reason I bring it up is because I've seen people say it of like,
Mhm.
oh, Asian doctors are better simply because they're Asian.
Yeah.
Because there's always been that stereotype of Asians are smarter,
Mhm.
you know?
And
What,
regardless if it's a good stereotype or a bad one, it's still a stereotype.
right. And I remember like there was people saying, I don't want an Asian doctor anymore because of, these comments that were being made and these beliefs that were being, produced of Asians are the reason why we have this disease here. And it's like, and for a lot of them, it wasn't even so much like, oh, who brought it? It was just people not taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
They told people wear a mask so you can not get infected. Try not to touch things too much. Try not to do this. We were given the things we needed to not get infected
Mhm.
or to like prevent it, to lessen our chances. But people didn't want to listen. And then when they did get infected, they wanted to blame it on someone else.
Yeah. When you're talking about the Asian doctors, I was like, you know, all of those doctors who all of the doctors who worked in the hospital, they received as much education as the other person. They've reached a,
Mm-hmm.
they've reached a certain level of education. They're a professional, they're licensed. They have enough credibility to become a doctor.
Right. Like everyone, every other doctor in that facility also went to med school. They also went through, their first 4 years of college. They went through residency. They all went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They all received the same education.
Yeah.
It's like saying, uh, a white teacher is better because she's white.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. They all received, their education, and they're all received, the same licensing to do what they do.
Yeah. And when it comes to, the frontliners, if anyone's listening, we appreciate and we value you guys risking your lives to save ours. Your actions will not be undervalued. We know that you have risked a lot being frontliners, being the people out there during the pandemic, risking your lives, potentially even getting COVID. We understand and we acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
your resilience and hard work during the pandemic.
Yeah, like to all those nurses and, MAs, PAs, doctors, firefighters, paramedics, just anyone, who was just putting themselves out there. That to me is heroic because, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do that. A lot of people decided, they didn't want to go through that. And, it for them to stick around and fight for us, to be able to be healthy, and all that. That was very brave. It was very brave.
Mm-hmm. Even to the point where they even risk their own families.
Yeah, a very big thank you to all of them. And for them to know that they will always be greatly appreciated for the sacrifices they made.
Negative effects about. And there we go. Really? Karens.
The rise of the Karens during the pandemic.
There wasn't even a term called a Karen back then. There wasn't.
No, that was a whole new like concept to everyone. It was just groups of, and a lot of people I feel like want to say automatically like, oh, they think of Karens and they think of just white women
Mm-hmm.
doing this. But it's kind of crazy to see that like even women of other ethnicities are acting the same way. Like
Yeah.
now it's more of like Karen is an attitude and like a way of acting rather than like a group of
Which
people.
is understandable because Karen is kind of also like a stereotype, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad that it kind of went away with the definition that Karens are only from white people because it's also generalizing that white people are automatically Karens? So,
Like white
yeah.
women, yeah. Right. Like I said, it's more come down to like a way of acting than just a group of like an ethnic group kind of thing.
At the end of the day, it's you. You have the choice to make that decision for yourself, and your actions will have consequences, good or bad. It's up to you if you want to do it or say whatever you want to say, post what you want to post. It's up to you, but know that whatever your actions are, they will have consequences.
Yeah, because like during the pandemic, I feel like we saw a big rise in like this Karen attitude, but online.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have so much opportunity to do it like in person. Like I couldn't, go up to you and offend you in your face.
Mhm.
So I feel like a lot of them took advantage of the fact that online, it's almost like you're not saying it directly to their face.
Yeah.
Like you have this front, you could even be like anonymous about it and just be like, I felt like offending you today,
Mhm.
so I'm going to. And like it was all over the place. And like another thing that was like really big among that like group of people was the victimization of themselves.
Oh yeah.
Like they would go and say something offensive, they would say something rude, they would say, try to attack a person, and then kind of fall to their knees and be like, oh my God, but they're just being so mean to
They're
me. They're doing this
harassing
to
me.
me. Right? Like, I don't know if you ever saw that video. Did you ever see that video? It was like trending on TikTok at some point where it was like this white lady. And not to say, that it's just white ladies, but in the video it was white. It was a white lady. I guess she had been like saying something to this other lady, to an African American.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, the girl started recording her. You know, as we know that that's something you're legally allowed to do,
Yeah.
right? So she starts recording her, and then the lady literally starts throwing like a tantrum. And when I say a tantrum, I mean like a little kid tantrum where like she's throwing herself on the
Oh my
floor.
god.
She's like, you know how little kids do that thing where they shake themselves
Mm-hmm.
when they're mad? She was doing that. And she was screaming. She was pointing at her. She was like, tell her to stop. Tell her to stop. She's harassing me. And, the girl on the camera was like, but you started this, though.
Oh
I'm just
yeah. Wait,
recording you. I'm not even.
wasn't it that video where they were at a store or something? Like a perfume store
They
or
were
whatever?
like in a. They were like in a Victoria's Secret,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh my god, I saw
Yeah, that video.
she went full on tantrum. But like
Like,
everyone
yeah.
was looking
It
at
was like a
her.
little kid tantrum.
Yeah, everyone was looking
Yeah,
at
it was
her.
insane.
So anyone can vouch for the person that they did nothing to attack.
Right. Like the lady recording, from what I have understood, that's a right. You have, you can do that. You can legally record. So, once the police come, or once if you decide to report this, you have your evidence of what happened during the
And you
altercation.
have so many
And I
eyewitnesses too.
remember yeah, and she has all these eyewitnesses telling, people, no, but she started it. The other lady started it, and now she's on the floor crying like a little kid
Yeah.
because she feels victimized.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what was going through her head when she did this. There are so many people looking at you, and almost every single person out there has a phone that they can easily take out of their
Mm-hmm.
pockets and record. And then you will be made
Yeah.
fun of for the rest of your life, or no one will ever live that down because of that,
No,
what
everyone's
you
gonna
did.
know, and yeah, and everyone's gonna remind you about it. Like, oh, you're on the internet, man. Like, you did this publicly. It's like the saying, they teach you when you're learning about like computers and stuff. They teach you what you put out to the internet is never coming down.
AKA digital footprint.
Exactly. Your digital footprint will always be there. And that video, as much as she tells people, oh, take it down, do this, do that, it's always going to be there.
Yeah,
Someone,
someone's gonna have a copy.
like the original person could have deleted it, yeah, but someone else probably already screen recorded it
Mm-hmm.
and put it somewhere else. It's just always going to kind of be there.
Yeah, and it became to the point where people were making parodies of Karens being
Yeah,
playing the victim card.
being Karens. Yeah, like now it's like a meme now.
It's
Like
ridiculous.
you're a Karen and everyone's gonna make fun of you. Did you ever see? I don't know if you ever saw this, but at some point there was like white women. There's a group of white women who started like a group so that they wouldn't be called Karens anymore.
So the anti-Karen Karens.
Essentially, I remember there was even ladies getting like the haircut. I know you know what haircut I'm talking
Oh
about.
my god.
The haircut with like on the side it would say Karen, and then it'd have like that red circle with the line in between
Mm-hmm.
it, like going diagonal on top of the Karen. I was like, really? You guys are kind of taking this a little far.
I know.
Like, if you don't want to be called a Karen, then don't be a Karen.
But like, I mean, you need to have done something to be called a Karen. Like something
Exactly.
significant, because you can't be called a Karen for nothing, you know? You have to have done
Yeah.
something big.
How do I just? It's like being called a thief and then being like, I didn't steal anything. Well,
Yeah.
someone saw you do something,
Mhm.
obviously, because if no one's just gonna go calling you a thief just because.
Yeah.
So after talking about everything today, on this episode, it kind of makes you question, if there's still hope for the world.
Mhm.
Like it makes you kind of question just all this. There's all this negativity in the world. Just what can you do about it?
Yeah.
Like what can you do to not feel like all that negativity gets to you?
Mhm. For me, from what I've been seeing, it's somewhat been getting better.
Right.
We're slowly going back to the normality of our lives, and but obviously there are still things that need to be fixed. Just problems that the world doesn't need right now. We have too many problems as it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of like big issues happening right now, you know. Like when you watch the news, it's just all this negativity, you know?
Hmm.
Like, you know, you have gun violence, you have women's rights, you have the LGBT rights,
Which we will all talk about in future episodes.
which, yes, well, will be included in another episode. Like, another big thing that's happening, you know, like, I don't know if you saw the whole thing with the book bans,
The what?
where they're like they're banning certain books
Oh yes, yes,
from
I've heard of that.
from
Hmm.
schools, which is funny to me because some of the books they're banning we read in high school, which I thought personally were really good. You know, like I felt like they really taught a
Yeah,
lot. You know,
honestly, I felt forced reading them, but after going through first few chapters, it started to get really good.
it's the one with Piccola. I don't know if you can remember the name, where she was a little girl and and she was being abused, and she kind of started going like crazy throughout the book, and
Yeah.
then like in the end she said she said she saw herself with blue eyes.
Hmm.
But that's a topic for another episode, because honestly we could really go on with like just even just like talking about the news, like all the news happening and like all the political stuff
Hmm.
that's happening. That could go on for like another
On and on and
good
on.
half an hour. Yeah, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Hopefully, you guys get a gist of what we'll be talking about in future episodes, and we really hope you enjoyed this first one. Rest assured, there will be more coming.
Our next couple episodes are also going to be some very similar to this, just topics, you know, that we felt important, that, you know, kind of needed to be talked about, just and our experiences with these topics. So I look forward to making more of these. I look forward to you guys listening to all of our episodes, and thank you to anyone who is.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. And if you made it that far, thank you for making it this far.
Thank you for listening.
And we hope to see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.